3 weeks before the wedding, Ryan stepped away from his last client call and returned home early, hoping to rehearse his wedding vows. He opened the front door and, to his surprise, saw his beautiful fiancée dressed up in a black cocktail dress, a string of pearls, sheer black stockings, and high heels. "Damn, she looks good," he thought. "You're early." Her piercing voice revealed the horror she felt inside as her plan to avoid confrontation began to crumble. At first, Ryan thought he had forgotten about a dinner date. So, he flashed his best smile, kissed his fiancée, and announced, "Give me 10 minutes, and I'll be clean-shaven and ready to go." "Ready to go where?" Caroline shuddered as the words slipped from her lips. He froze. "With you, of course, given how hot you look." After a significant pause, the fiancé replied, "Dear, I'm very sorry, but you misunderstood me. Oh God, I was so afraid of this conversation that I was going to leave you a note explaining everything." Ryan was even more confused when he noticed that next to the front door stood Caroline's travel bag. She saw where he was looking. "I won't be home this weekend."
I'm puzzled.
"What do you mean? You won't be home?" "I got so carried away with planning the wedding. I need to leave." "And where are you headed?" "A hotel in the city center." "Alone?" It took her more than a minute to reply. "I will be with a friend." Ryan took a deep breath. "Since you didn't mention your friend's name, can I assume that you'll be with a man?" Caroline looked guilty as sin. "It's not like that. He's just a friend." Ryan's voice grew louder. He began punching the air as if he could force the words to obey. "You're going to stay in the same room with a man a week before our wedding, and you want me to believe he's just a friend? I need this weekend. Who is this son of a bitch who will be sharing a bed with you?" His voice filled the room. "It's not like that. He's my friend, someone I talk to." "Talk about what?" "About us, our relationship." "Is he an experienced psychiatrist or psychologist?" Caroline sank to the floor and said nothing. "Is he a licensed therapist or counselor?" Again, no answer. "Is he at least a member of the clergy who advises engaged couples?" "No, but he's a good listener," she murmured. "A good listener," Ryan growled. "You're going to spend the weekend before our wedding with some jerk because he's a good listener." Caroline lowered her head even further. Her shoulders drooped, and she seemed to shrink. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." Ryan waited until she lifted her head. She was sobbing, and tears streamed down her cheeks. Less than 2 minutes had undone hours of preparation. "I'll ask you one last time. Who is this jerk? Promise you won't hurt him." "I promise that I'll find out who he is, and I'll kill him if you go through with this. That's what I promise." Caroline collapsed onto the floor and curled up like a scolded puppy that had just chewed its owner's favorite slippers. "Get up and answer me." Still, there was no answer. Ryan ripped a mirror off the hallway wall and threw it across the room. It shattered against the dining room wall, scattering shards of glass across the wooden floor. Caroline jumped to her feet. "That's why I was going to turn off my phone and leave you a note explaining why I had to do this." Ryan's face terrified Caroline. "So, if I had come home at the usual time, you would have already been gone." No response, just a nod. Ryan struggled to keep his composure. "And you were going to sneak away to spend the weekend with another man and leave me a note." Ryan opened his briefcase, pulled out a notepad and a pen. He threw them on the dining table and pushed a chair towards it. "It better be a damn good note. Start writing." Caroline sat down and began to write. After a few minutes, she stopped and put down the pen. He waited for her to hand him the notepad. When she didn't, he snatched it from her. She had written exactly one sentence. "Next week, I will start a new chapter of my life, and I must do this before it's too late." Ryan looked devastated. His voice trembled with emotion as he asked, "Tell me the truth. Were you going to admit that you are leaving with another man?" "If I had more time, I would have explained my feelings." "You didn't answer my question." "I would have phrased it like this. Do you agree that what I did was for us, to make our marriage stronger?" "That's madness. There's no sense in that. How could your affair make our marriage stronger?" He didn't give her a chance to respond. People get divorced when one of them has an affair. Marriages end because of affairs, and so do engagements. This took her by surprise. She had never thought that Ryan would threaten to cancel their wedding over this. Caroline tried to think of a way to justify her actions. Finding none, she resigned and blurted out, "I couldn't tell you because I knew you would react badly." Badly? The word flipped a switch, and Ryan exploded. "What are you talking about? This isn't just bad. This is your last chance. I won't marry you next week or at all if you don't tell me his name right now. The wedding is off. How's that for bad?" Caroline grabbed him by the shoulders. "Ryan, please, don't say that. I love you more than anything in the world, but this is something I have to do." He broke free. "Tell me his name." Silence. "You have one last chance. Tell me his name or get the hell out of my house and never come back." "Ryan, please, don't talk like that. I love you." There's really only one way to show it. He opened the front door. "This is the last time I'm saying this. Tell me his name or get the hell out of my house." Finally, she couldn't bear it anymore. Scott Jenkins from work. "Your boss. That son of a bitch older than your father." Ryan screamed. Caroline howled like a banshee trying to escape from hell. "Have you already slept with him?" No answer followed. "Have you already slept with him?" Caroline silently stared at the ground. "Have you already slept with him?" Caroline covered her face with her hands. "Although your silence speaks louder than any words, I still wait for an answer. Have you already slept with him?" She nodded affirmatively. This simple gesture struck Ryan harder than any baseball bat. His heart pounded wildly, and he thought he might have a heart attack. His head spun, and he grabbed the table to keep from falling. Caroline stood, afraid to say anything. Ryan took several deep breaths before he could speak. "As far as I remember from the Christmas party, he's married. What does his wife think about him sleeping with a beautiful blonde half her age?" "She doesn't mind. She's going through menopause and hasn't been able to have sex for nearly a year." "Did she tell you that herself?" "No, Mr. Jenkins, Scott. He said she's too embarrassed to talk about it." "Why don't we call her and ask?" "No, Scott said it would humiliate her even more." "Give me your phone. I'm ready to risk it." "I don't have her home number, only mobile." "That means the jerk sneaks around behind his wife's back." No. He respects her feelings and doesn't want her to feel less worthy as a woman." "I can't believe how foolishly you're defending him. I can't stand this. I give you a choice. Leave or be thrown out on your ass." "How dare you call me an animal? What would you call an engaged woman who has an affair with a married man?" No answer. She turned away from him and started muttering to herself. "Before you leave, I have one more question. Why were you planning to spend the weekend with another man?" Finally, she spoke. "It's all your fault, you know." "My fault? What the hell are you talking about?" "When things got serious between us, you admitted that you had been with 3 other girls before me. You were the only man I had been with. I told you it didn't matter, but after talking to Scott, it started to eat at me, and I knew I would eventually cheat on you to even things out. Scott said that if our marriage is to be successful, we must enter it as equals. He said I should do this now because I told him, you always said you would never stay married to a woman who cheats on you. We're not married, so I would even the score. Then I would never cheat on you after we get married." "What? Have you lost your mind?" "That was before I met you. I have been 100% faithful to you since our first date," Ryan continued. "So, you jeopardized our entire future for some lustful old man who wanted to sleep with a girl half his age." "No, it's not like that at all. I mean, yes, we talked about it. He made me realize how unfair it was to me, but he never tried to manipulate me." "So, it never occurred to you that he had a vested interest in having you even the score?"
No.
"It was not like that at all. He just wanted to help us." "Don't make me laugh. What exactly did the good listener say that could help us?" "He hardly said anything, but he helped me think it all through. He made me realize that I had the right to sleep with 3 different men so that we could enter our marriage as equals. Right. What a load of crap. Ryan yelled. Ryan, I enjoyed sex with another man, but I love you so much that I'm willing to settle for just one. Caroline smirked foolishly, as if she had played a trump card. Settle for one? Ryan looked at her intently. If it weren't so pathetic, I would laugh. I'm so confused. When Scott explained it, it made so much sense. It wasn't supposed to be like this. You're right. We were supposed to be together forever, faithful to each other. Ryan looked like he was about to explode. And how do you think would I react when I find out that you're sleeping with your boss?
No. No. No.
You're twisting everything. Then tell me, what do you think will happen when you come back home after the weekend? Did you really think I'd be the good little cuckold and thank the old man for sleeping with my fiancée? No, I hoped you would never find out. I love you. I never wanted to hurt you. It was going to be my little secret, hidden forever. You thought you could go away for the weekend, just turn off your phone and disappear without telling me where you were going, and I wouldn't realize you had cheated on me. He looked at her as if she were a naive country girl. And yet she continued speaking. Even if you found out, I know. You love me enough to understand the fairness of it, and we would get married and live happily ever after. Fairness. The word was charged with fury. What about everything you know about me made you believe that I would still marry you after you had an affair? Scotty said. Damn it. Ryan shouted. He's an asshole who found a naive woman he could control. No, he's a very caring person who wanted to help our marriage succeed. How many times have you had sex with him or any other man? I swear, there were no other men. Then how many times did you sleep with him? Not that many, 7 or 8. You had sex with another man 7 or 8 times while we were engaged, and you think that's not that many? I did it for us, Caroline sobbed. To make our marriage work. Remember the conversation when I admitted I wasn't a virgin? I never told you I had been with 3 different girls before you. I just said that I had sex 3 times. Each time was with Sally McDonough, a girl things were good with until I met you. We planned to run away together after high school. That quickly ended when her mother caught us naked. You know how that story ended. They left town the next day, and I never heard from her again. We met the next month. Since that day, I haven't kissed another woman, let alone had sex. Caroline felt nauseous. So, you're ahead of me by 7 or 8 to 3. I guess I would need to sleep with 4 or 5 more women to make us equal.
No.
Do you think that jerk would say that I have the right to sleep with 4 or 5 different women to make us equal? What about your best friend, Laura? You always said you don't trust her around me. Maybe your sister? She isn't seeing anyone. No, Ryan, please no. Give me one good reason why not. I will end this affair and not go away with him for the weekend. You have to understand, I made a mistake, but I did it for us.
No.
You did it for yourself and yourself alone. Please, Ryan, give me another chance, she pleaded. You're too late. I can never trust you again. Please, give me one more chance. I swear I will never. Ryan raised his hand. She fell silent. What you did was pure evil. There's no us anymore. You destroyed it. And there will be no wedding. Never.
No.
Don't say that. I love you. I swear. I'll never cheat on you again. What hurts even more than your sexual betrayal is that you didn't come to me when you had doubts. The person you supposedly love. I don't know what I would have said or done, but I can swear I would never have advised you to start an affair with a married man. Only a creature that destroys marriages could do such a thing. Silence. Caroline could almost feel the bony fingers of death tearing her soul from her chest. Every breath she took, she struggled to breathe, tasting bile in her mouth. How do you think your mother will call you when I tell her we are not getting married because you took in the tool of an old freak? A real old tool. Caroline responded with a scream, No. I will make sure that everyone knows what you did. All of our family and friends will know that we are not getting married because you had an affair with a married man. Ryan grabbed her left hand and nearly broke her finger, taking the engagement ring from his former fiancée.
No.
It's mine. You gave it to me. Her hands flailed at him, trying to retrieve the symbol of their commitment. You betrayed us. You betrayed everything this ring stands for. He clenched it tightly in his fist. It's over. I can't marry you. Please leave before I hurt you. The finality of these words painfully wounded Caroline. She tried to speak, but her mouth could not produce a word. Instead, she emitted a sound like someone dying, struggling for their last breath. Her eyes were wide. Her body trembled. Still, no words were heard. The room fell into silence. Tears streamed down Ryan's cheeks. I haven't felt like this since my father died. Caroline rummaged through her memory, trying to find the right words to save her marriage. But nothing came out. Only then did she finally understand that she had been deceived. A sharp knock at the door broke the silence. Caroline recovered from the shock enough to say, "Oh my God, that's Scott. I'll tell him to leave. Please, don't make a scene." Ryan grabbed the baseball bat he kept by the door. "I'm not going to cause trouble. I'll kill him right here in the foyer while you watch." Caroline jumped up and tried to stop him. "He's not worth going to jail for." "I really don't care." He bypassed her. "I have nothing to live for, but if I kill him, I will have avenged the pain he caused me." She tried to call him on his cell phone to warn him. The call went straight to voicemail. Ryan, holding the bat in one hand, opened the door. He was ready to knock the old man down. Instead, he was met by two police officers. The bat fell from his hand. It hit the ceramic tile floor with a loud clunk. The officers ignored him. "Excuse me, ma'am. Are you Caroline Bradley?" "What's the problem, officer?" The police entered and closed the door. "Do you know Mrs. Loretta Jenkins?" "I work for her husband, Scott." The officers looked at each other as if they were in on a private joke. "Is everything all right? Did something happen to Loretta?" "No, ma'am. But about an hour ago, Mrs. Jenkins killed her husband in the living room of their home." Caroline fainted and fell to the floor. Ryan went into the kitchen and returned with a large pot full of water. He poured it over her face. Her once beautifully styled hair now looked like a drowned rat. It took several minutes before she could speak. "Oh God, Scotty is dead," she sobbed. "Yes, ma'am. She shot him 6 times in the chest with a .38 caliber revolver, then reloaded and shot him 6 more times point blank in the face." Detectives said it was the coldest thing they'd ever seen. She nearly blew his head off. The only sound was Ryan's laughter. The police looked at him as if he were insane. "Looks like she didn't let her husband go away with you for the weekend after all. We need you to come to the station, ma'am. Mrs. Jenkins told a neighbor she would kill you for ruining her marriage. We have half a dozen squads patrolling the area, but they think you'll be safer at the station." She had a pale, stunned face. "Don't come back, you liar." His voice faded as his former fiancée let out a terrible scream. The police half-carried Caroline to their car. Ryan watched as the blue lights disappeared into the distance, trying to understand how his life had turned to crap. 3 strong swigs of whiskey loosened his tongue. The 4th awakened his writing skills. He set about composing an email to everyone whose addresses he had: family, friends, colleagues, the church choir, everyone. Ryan titled it, "Why I Am Not Marrying Caroline Bradley, the Deceiver and Beast." If you watch the news tonight, the lead story will be about a middle-aged woman who killed her husband because he slept with a 25-year-old beast. Shamefully, this beast is my former fiancée. Yes, the prissy and proper Miss Caroline, who always looked down on her friends for sleeping around, is responsible for a 60-year-old man getting shot. Yes, she slept with a guy older than her father. Now you know why I'm not getting married. Thank God it happened before I ruined my life by marrying a cheating beast. P.S. The police are hiding Caroline because the widow of her lover is hunting her down to kill her. I hope she succeeds. A couple of minutes after he hit the send button, he had half a dozen replies. Then his phone rang. The first call was from a local newspaper asking for an interview. He sent the reporter a couple of photos of her in a tight bikini. Then he told him the story of her betrayal. Then he agreed to give an interview on a local radio station. For the next 2 hours, Ryan spent his time talking to journalists and responding to emails. Most of them, including Caroline's friends and family, were very supportive. When he got tired of repeating the story, he took a break and started stuffing Caroline's belongings into black trash bags. Eventually, he filled 4 bags. He dragged them to the garage near the trash cans. Ryan lived in a suburban neighborhood where there hadn't been a murder in 5 years, so the next morning the local newspaper ran a headline, "Love Triangle Ends in Death." Television stations also descended on the peaceful community. Each led their evening news with photos of the fugitive suspect, as well as Ryan's former fiancée in a bikini and the victim. It was pitch dark outside when Ryan decided to finish off a bottle of bourbon. The next morning, the TV crews arrived just in time to film a locksmith changing the locks. In conclusion, he hung a sign, "No trespassing." 2 hours later, the police found Loretta Jenkins asleep in her car a few blocks from Caroline's apartment. She was arrested without incident. Ryan was hungover when someone began knocking on his front door. "Go away," he yelled. "It's the police," came the reply. He opened the door. "Mr. Erickson, your fiancée wants to come home to explain what happened." "I don't have a fiancée, and this is not her home. This is my house. It will never be her home. Please take her things, because I might do something I'll regret later." He stepped outside and pointed at the trash bags. "That's all she had. I would appreciate it if you told her that I will never forgive her and will never speak to her again. Never." He heard her screaming from the patrol car, "Ryan, I love you." He slammed the door and turned on the television. He switched to a movie channel and leaned back in his chair to watch a black and white western. No one ever admitted to sending the photos that led Mrs. Jenkins to learn about the affair. But everyone agreed that Scotty's secretary had a very smug expression on her face when she showed up at work on Monday morning. Caroline became a pariah in the town. Naturally, she was fired even before she could enter her office. When the owner died and his wife's expensive lawyers failed to prove temporary insanity, the business was sold to a Chinese investor who quickly fired everyone and relocated operations to a small island nation. Caroline's family and friends were united in their condemnation of the adulteress. The day after she testified in court, she packed all her belongings into her car and set off to start a new life. As she drove out of town for the last time, she passed by Ryan's house. A sold sign was posted in the yard. She tried to keep driving but could see nothing through her tears. She stopped the car, closed her eyes, and tried to remember what it felt like when he held her. She wished she could die. Epilogue: 6 years had passed, and Ryan returned to his hometown for the funeral of a childhood friend who had died a hero in Iraq. The Alumni Association had invited the entire class, and a large turnout was expected. It was the first time he had come back since that night. His beautiful wife, Brooklyn, affectionately known as Brooke, clutched his hand as he led her through the town square. She knew that every step held very bad memories for him, and she tightened her grip. Little Ryan, being an energetic 3-year-old boy, didn't want to wait for his slow-moving parents and took off to explore on his own. When his mom and dad stopped to look into the window of an antique shop, little Ryan, not looking where he was going, ran into a woman coming out of the store. She stepped back a few steps and dropped her bag on the sidewalk. Several items fell out, including a condolence card. "Ryan Robert Erickson, stop running right now." A chill ran down the woman's spine when she heard his name. His mother turned to the woman and said, "We've been in the car for 6 hours, and he has too much pent-up energy to walk." Little Ryan approached the woman and said, unprompted, "I'm sorry I bumped into you, lady, and made you cry. Are you okay?" Brooke asked.
Infine.
"Your son is a very well-mannered gentleman. You should be proud of him." As Ryan Sr. knelt down to pick up the bag, he recognized the woman. Their eyes met, and they continued to look at each other while his son helped him pick up a fallen pin. He silently handed the bag to the woman. Then Brooke noticed tears in her husband's eyes. She immediately understood who this woman was, and like a lioness protecting her cubs, she stepped between the painful memory and her husband. "Never come near my family." She stared intently at the woman, provoking her to speak. As Caroline slipped away, she heard Brooke add, "Never means forever. You're a monster."
Thank you for being with us and listening until the end. If you found it interesting, please subscribe, give us a like, and leave your comments.